Cool, welcome back. Slightly different format today. Not out and about as I normally am. I am in a dog walking park. I've been interrupted a couple of times with people walking past, if I will choose to film where people walk their dogs. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about the future. I think it's good to have inflection, to think towards what can happen, what will be, what won't be. It's a good way to prepare your lives, and frankly it's human to think about possibilities, what could happen, what has happened, what would happen if things happen differently. There are so many chains of events that lead to things, and if you change just one of those links, the outcome can be completely different. And because I think about these, I've written them down, and I'm very interested to see what the world would look like in 10 years. So the current day of filming is February 2023. These are my personal predictions of how I think the world will look in 2033. I'm not representing anyone else. These are purely my own thoughts and opinions. I could be, and probably will be, very wrong. I hope that I am on a couple of them, but needless to say, I thought it'd just make an interesting video and it'd be a good experiment for me to put out there that I can look back on in 10 years and see how right or how wrong I was. And it's just an interesting thought experiment for me. And if you want to join me along for the journey, great, feel free. Subscribe to the channel, add a like and a comment, it helps incredibly. But cutting to the chase, how do I think the world will look in 2023? To start off, I think that King Charles will probably have passed away or resigned his post as king. This is very poignant because as of today's date, Queen Elizabeth II has only died in the last 6 months. I'm still getting used to the idea that she's not around and that Charles is now king. And I'm aware that there's a good long history of longevity of life within the royal family. The Queen lived till 93. Prince Philip lived till he was 99. The Queen Mother lived well over 100. But there are certain health issues that have been raised in regard to King Charles III in recent years. He's very often shown with red, flushed cheeks and very swollen hands, fingers and feet. Whether this could be edema or could be issues with his heart or his kidneys, this is all speculation. But the man is 72 at current date, and if he has serious health issues, then could very easily predict that by 2033 he may sadly no longer be with us. Hopefully he is. I hope I'm wrong on this, but I think that he will either have sadly passed on or will have resigned his role as king, and William will either be gearing up to very soon become king or already will be king. Now, continuing on with predictions in the royal family, I believe that Harry and Meghan Markle will have divorced. I think that Harry will have tried to re-enter into the royal family, but unsuccessfully. I think in the time between now and when they do divorce, this is again purely speculation, but I don't think that the relationship will last. I think the pressure due to estrangement from his family will push Harry too far and the relationship will break down. To current date, they've released several documentaries, a couple of interviews and a book, and I think that they will keep rolling out this content, and it will push the royal family so far away from Harry that he will eventually realise, no, I shouldn't be doing this, let's try and fix things with my family in private, and they'll just say no. And again, I hope this isn't true. I hope that they stay together, and I hope that Harry is able to mend the relationship with his family. But my prediction is that they will have seen him to have gone too far, his relationship will break down, he'll try to re-enter and they'll say no, and he'll end up fading into obscurity. Within the general UK, I think that Labour will be in power, and I think that they will be in their second term. I think it will be hit and miss whether they'll sit a third term. Again, this is a fairly easy prediction to make. The general consensus in the country right now is that the public are not happy with the Conservatives being in power due to a massive list of failings through the last few years. The lockdown laws, the parties that the government held under Boris Johnson within 10 Downing Street during lockdown, and the rules that he himself set out. The housing crisis, the cost of living crisis. Just everyone I speak to, everywhere I go, is saying they want the Conservatives out, and we've got election coming up relatively soon. I think that Labour will come in, and I think that they will be on their second term. Whether they will make a third, I don't know. I think that HS2 will be completed. If you don't live in the UK, HS2 is a high-speed rail link that has been in development for the last 10 years or so, and the idea is that it's a high-speed, almost bullet train that will run from London all the way up to Scotland. There have been so many problems with building it, getting permission, ecological issues, agricultural issues, and just so many problems with it that it's been held back and held back and held back, and it's still being built, it's still in progress. I think it will be completed, but I think it will run very, very inefficiently, and I think it's going to take a long time for it to even come to its full potential. Quite poignantly, a train horn just went off. I think Scotland will either have just held or will be gearing up to hold Indy Ref 2. Now, if you don't live in the UK, Indy Ref is a referendum that was held about 10 years ago, where Scotland bidded for independence from the UK. It wanted to leave the Union and be its own sovereign state, much like the whole of the United Kingdom was with Brexit. I think they will end up leaving the UK. And I hope that they don't, because one of the things that prides me being British is that we are a unity of nations, and that we, even though that we're a landmass which is relatively small in comparison to other countries like Canada, the United States of America, Brazil, Australia, we are so definable by our differences, and yet it brings us together. You cannot compare Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, England, even England, separated into different counties. We're all so proud of the little places that we come from, and yet we all pull together as this nation. I think that's wonderful, and it's a real shame that parts of us want to break off and leave, and that'd be a crying shame. But I think it's going to happen, because there's been lots of stirring for a second referendum, and I think it will happen, and I think that Scotland will leave, and I think it will be a thin margin, much like it was with Brexit, but I do think it's going to happen. I think that there will be a ultra low emission zone in every major city in the UK. Now, this isn't a far-fetched theory, because London already has an ultra low emission zone, and that is spreading later this year, and it's going to cover every area within the M25, which is an orbital motorway which goes around London, and that's huge. There are also other cities in the UK which have low emission zones, but I think every major city will say, no, we don't allow diesels, we don't allow old cars. And I think that there will also be heavy taxation on any vehicle that is fossil fueled still within the UK. And I think that this isn't a difficult prediction to make, because we're already saying that by 2025 all new manufactured cars will have to be electric. The idea that 5 years later that there'll be a heavy taxation on any cars that are fossil fueled, I don't think that's a far-fetched, but I think it will happen. Now, I hope this one is partially true. I think that the war in Ukraine will have ended. Now, that bit I hope is true. The second bit I hope is not, because I think that the only way that this war is going to end is with the involvement of NATO. And I think that, again, this isn't a difficult prediction to make, because something very similar to it has already happened. I think a stray ballistic from the Russian side will end up landing on NATO territory, and NATO will have no choice but to get involved. I hope this doesn't happen because there will be incredible tensions, and I don't want there to be any more loss of life than there already has been. But I do want the war to end, and I think that almost everyone in the world will agree with that. But for NATO to get involved is some very tricky territory, and one that I'm not qualified to really comment on. But that is my prediction. Moving on, I think that bite-sized entertainment will now be the standard format on social media. Now, right now, there's quite a lot of it out there. We have Facebook Reels, Instagram Shorts, we've got TikTok. TikTok is huge in 2023. And these all stem out of bite-sized content that derived from social media that shut down a few years ago, and it's really taken off. Right now, it's probably taking up for about 25% of social media, but I think that will become the standard content, and there will be new platforms coming out that cater just for that, much alike to TikTok. And I think that things like YouTube will not necessarily close down, but I think long feature-length videos, or even just long videos that take 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, I think that will become old and outdated, because people are so busy and have so much going on in the world. They only have time for a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes to sit down and watch something, and I think that will be the standard set for social media. And moving over to the United States, I think both Donald Trump and Joe Biden will have passed on. And this again is probably a fairly easy prediction to make. I mean, in 2023, Joe Biden will be 90 and Donald Trump will be 86. Donald Trump already has physical health issues, and this has been made very public knowledge when he was in power. I think that Trump will have attempted to run for president a second time. The United States elections are coming up next year in 2024, but I don't think he'll win it, and I don't think Joe Biden will run for a second term. I think that he will hand over to his vice president, Kamala Harris. I think that she'll win and potentially sit 2 terms. That doesn't quite take us up to 2033. I don't know who's going to be president in 2023, but I do think Kamala Harris will sit at least 1, if not 2 terms, and sadly I think Biden and Trump will both have left this world. I think that there will be a new public health scare at some point in the next 10 years. This is quite easy to predict. I mean, every 5 or 6 years there's a new virus that comes out. Granted, I don't think it'll be to the level that COVID was. I'm thinking more along the lines of swine flu, Ebola, like that. How the public will react to it, I think that there'll be an initial scare and worry where people flash back to COVID, but I think that will be very short-lived, and the general consensus from the public will be, we survived COVID, don't worry about it. And that can be dangerous. If there are health guidelines in place, absolutely follow them. I don't think it will be to the level that COVID was, but I do think that there'll be another public health scare. I think that the UK housing market will have crashed, and overall I think that the general public will feel that this is a good thing. Right now in 2023, housing prices are so high that the majority of people who are starting out in their late teens, 20s, even 30s are struggling to buy houses. And the rental market is just so expensive that even moving out and renting is a difficult thing for people to do. And I think that it's going to continue to grow and grow along with the cost of living crisis, and that people just aren't going to be willing to either go and buy or go and rent, and it's going to cause a crash. And hopefully prices will get cheaper, and generally the public will feel this is a good thing, apart from obviously the people who are trying to rent out their houses or sell their houses when they bought them at a higher price. Moving on to technology, I think that AI will peak, or at least be continuing to get to a point to almost science fiction levels. I mean, today in 2023 we have so many things in place which are already incredible, but they're not refined. You're able to go into a McDonald's and you're able to touch the screen to make the order without having to use a physical person to buy something. You're able to use Siri and Alexa and Google Assistant and all these incredible little systems within the home, so that you can do everything through voice command activation. We even have a McDonald's opening up which is completely AI controlled, an unmanned McDonald's, and this is new and exciting and brilliant. And the fact that we're able to do that with one McDonald's means that we can transfer it over to other services. And right now you're able to phone up and talk to an automated receptionist, but you have to push buttons and things like that. I think that AI will reach a level of near sentience where it can use logical human-like reasoning. For an example, you could phone up your doctors to book an appointment, and you can talk to an electronic triage, which will be able to list you down and go through all the things that you would need a receptionist to do, but it's programmed in a way where you don't need a receptionist, and you're able to organise this just through the reasoning that the AI has been set up with. I don't think it will be standard set practice, but I think it will definitely be coming into play. And to add on to that, I think that there will also be a shift in how things are prepared and delivered. Right now, in 2023, food delivery services are booming. We've got Uber Eats, we've got Just Eat, we've got Deliveroo, and that's a good service, but that involves there being a restaurant and a driver, and then the software is all built between it. I think that moving forward, building these businesses up, I imagine that the fast food franchises will eventually become almost fully automated, and you'll be able to send the information over by phone, have it prepared, and the machine will set it all out. Say you're asking for a McDonald's, you type in your order on the phone, and it will go along like a little conveyor belt and all be put together rather than a person. And rather than having a delivery driver, I don't know how accurate this one's going to be, but it wouldn't surprise me if in the next 10 years drone technology had moved forward in such a way that they were strong enough and be able to be independently piloted via GPS, not by a person but by GPS, to a predetermined route that they can land down in the fast food restaurant. The food comes off the conveyor belt, put into a little package on the bottom of the drone, and flown off, and then dropped off at the front doorstep of the person. Now, like I say, I don't know, I'm not certain on whether this one will happen, because the idea of having fast food delivered by drone obviously has its drawbacks. No one wants to have a hot curry falling from the sky on top of them. What if there's a collision in the sky, or the GPS fails, or someone steals the drone? There are so many things that go wrong with this. But is the technology going to be looked at and potentially developed? Yeah, I think it is. And that brings me to the end of the list. Bit of a long-winded video, but these are, again, just my predictions. I think this is a very interesting to think about, and if you've got any thoughts on things that could change in the future, or how the world could look in 2033, please click the subscribe button, like the video, share it if you want to, and comment below. Keep tuned for more. Thank you. Love it when someone can see that you're filming a video and just decide to walk in front of the shot when you're 5 minutes into filming a monologue.